Hello everyone and welcome to this week's Everton show. We've got the usual eclectic mix of all things Everton in the next hour, and we'll be dissecting the disappointing defeat at Turf Moor last Saturday, as well as looking ahead to this weekend's game at Goodison Park against West Ham United. Alongside me this week is Graham Stewart. Graham, it's too early in the season to label the West Ham game a must-win game, but we could do with the 3 points.
No, we could. It would be nice to get ourselves back on track. Certainly to pick up 3 points would be a major boost after the last few weeks. Obviously the Burnley game was a huge disappointment, a game which we pretty much dominated. We certainly didn't deserve to lose the game. We got done by a sucker punch, but unfortunately that can happen in football.
Looking forward to seeing your old mate Slav?
Yeah, it's always nice to see Slav and, your ex-players and your ex-mates as well. So they've picked up as well. They've had some good results in past weeks. So, they'll be coming to Goodison full of confidence. They had a good result last season against us as well. So we need to avoid that. But, we play well on the day, good enough to get the 3 points.
Let's hope so. And let's have a quick look now at what other bits and pieces we've got for you on this week's Everton show.
I scored today, which personally delighted to get off the mark, but the dampener is that we didn't get any points out of the game, and personally as a player you always want to come away with the game with something.
I had an idea that I'd like to work with the strikers. It's an area of the pitch I know better than the other areas, so I approached Sean and Unzi.
I did a little bit of management skullduggery in that particular time. I said we'd had an offer of 1,100,000 from you, where it was only £1, so I only added a few noughts.
I
think that's 3 I've got in my career against West Ham, so I thought about that this morning driving in, to be honest, and hopefully I can make it 4.
Graham, we clearly did enough to win the game at Turf Moor last week, or at least get a point, but the only stats that really count are the final score.
Well, it is. It's hugely disappointing because, as you said, the chances were there for us, but it's one thing creating them. It's the hardest thing in the world is to put them in the back of the net, and that's why the strikers get paid so much money. They're the most sought-after players on the pitch. We've got to make sure we're more careful in that final third. That's the reality of it, and take our chances.
And to be undone with virtually the last kick of the game is a killer, isn't it? Well,
it's a huge kick in the teeth to the players, the management, and all the travelling fans, everybody really, because you can sometimes lull your sense into a false sense of security when you're dominating a game in the way that we were. You're just expecting chance after chance to come, and someone's going to put it in the back of the net. All of a sudden, they break away, sucker punch, 2-1, no time to get back in the game.
And he was lucky to be on the field as well, wasn't he, Scott Arfield? Well, the general consensus of opinion in the media lounge at Turf Moor last Saturday was that Everton certainly did enough to win the game. The second half in particular was largely one-way traffic towards Tom Heaton's goal, but only Yannick Bolasie managed to find a way through. The wide man was pleased to be off the mark for the Toffees, but of course his joy was punctured by the surprising 2-1 defeat.
Yeah, obviously disappointed not to come out of the game with any points. I scored today, which personally delighted to get off the mark, but the dampener is that we didn't get any points out of the game, and personally as a player you always want to come away with the game with something.
We was the team that was on top in the second half. We were pushing for the winner, and then just look at it as though they just caught us out there at the end.
Well, it's part of football. We went to Man City. We dug in deep, and people probably thought we should have lost that game. And today, the game, you look at it, we should have won, and we end up taking no points. So I guess we just got to dust ourselves down and move on to the next game.
Just tell us a bit about your goal. Run down the right, powerful shot across the keeper.
Yeah, something that we always do in training. So when I got into that position, I kind of knew what I wanted, and obviously it gives you a lift in confidence, and you start to do things that you used to doing, and which myself personally, confidence is a massive thing in my game.
Is that always the key goal, getting your first goal for a football club, getting off the mark?
Well, I haven't really been thinking of it like that, to be honest, because at the same time I've been creating chances, and I'm happy doing that, but like the manager said, he probably wants a little bit more from the attackers around Rom, and today I've got one and I'm lucky.
What's the manager said to you in the dressing room after the game?
It's football, to dust ourselves down and be ready for the next game, which is at home to West Ham, which will be tough on Sunday.
It was a fine goal, wasn't it, by Yannick? A shame it was only a consolation because he took it really well.
He did take it very well. Shoved Rom out the way, didn't he, along the way?
He had to score then.
Well,
didn't he,
once you've done that to your centre forward, you've got to make sure you put it in the back of the net, and Yannick did that very, very well. But it's we want more from him in that area as well. We want him to be scoring. You know, for me, your wide men, your Kevin Moraleses, your Yannicks, your Delafeos, you've got to be looking at getting half a dozen goals each. You know, Ross has got to be coming to the party with half a dozen to 10 goals from the position he plays in, because we are over-reliant on Ronald. That's the reality of the situation, and it's up to the forward players, you know, to take some of the pressure off him.
Yannick's got goals in his locker, hasn't he?
Of course he has. I mean, he's got great strength, great pace, you know, and he's not afraid to shoot as well. I mean, he's just got to work on making sure he hits the target. You do that more often than not, you're going to, you know, at least test the keeper, and some of those are going to go in the back of the net as well.
It was very brave of him, wasn't it, to nick it off Rom's toes?
Well, it was, but I like to see that. As I say, you know, there's more, you know, strings to our bow than just Romelu.
More goals to come from Yannick Bolasie as well. Right, that's enough Burnley talk for now. A couple of weeks ago, myself and Diamond were joined by Ian Snowden at the Isle of Gladstone venue in Stanley Park for the annual Everton in the Community Disabled Football Awards evening. Under 23 players Joe Williams and Matty Hoult came along as well, and just like it is every year, it was a terrific event in terrific company.
We've got several different teams that represent Everton Football Club. That could be pan disability teams, or it could be impairment specific teams. So we have a Down syndrome team, we have a deaf team, an amputee team. We have pan disability teams, which is different disability groups playing together, but different ability levels. And we have different age groups as well. So we have under 13s, under 16s, and adults as well. Disabled people, the same as non-disabled people, they want to have that opportunity to play football, really. So, and you know, I've got the best job in the world, because you know I go home making, you know, knowing that I've changed people's lives for the better.
Honestly, like I appreciate everybody who have voted for me. I cannot describe how much this means to me. I thank everybody, all the deaf players who have voted for me in my team. When I was 8 and growing up from then, I went through. I was in like the under-8s team, and then got through to the under-16s, and now I'm like in the senior side for the deaf team. I thoroughly enjoyed myself, you know, learning new things all the time.
Really been enjoyable, terrific and rewarding to see the faces on these young people as they come up and, you know, get their rewards. These lads here and some of the girls as well have got disabilities, but they don't let it stop them. They get out there and they put that royal blue shirt on, and they represent our football club with pride.
The Archie's under-16s, the Players Player of the Year for 2016 is Hugh Evans.
It really is magnificent to my mate, because they think I'm a good player. You know, this is coming up to my 3rd season in the Everton in the Community under-16 pound disability side, and it feels fantastic.
And I believe you went over to Switzerland this summer as part of a special youth camp. Can you tell us a little bit more about the experience and how much you enjoyed it?
I enjoyed Switzerland. Basel absolutely was a brilliant trip, because it was nice weather, and to represent Everton and your country and your team and your family, and especially the coaches, and score a few goals.
Everybody knows that Everton Football Club are #1 in community work throughout the Premier League, throughout England, and we get all the first team players involved, all ex-players involved, youngsters from the under-21s and 23s all involved as well. So it just shows as a club what we're prepared to do. But overall, the community scheme here for the disability is second to none, and we've seen this evening the smiles on these faces. There's a lot of people put a lot of effort in, and I think one thing we haven't really applauded as well is the parents, because they put a lot of time and effort in, and it is fantastic to see these kids smiling, picking up the awards, wearing the Everton badge, and we're very proud as a club, and I'm sure they are as families.
We go to that event every year, Graham, and we love it, don't we?
Yeah, we do. It's brilliant. Some real characters amongst you know, the people there at the Disability Awards, and it's a great setting for them. The night is put on every well as it would be if it was for the able-bodied sides as well. So, you know, we all get together, have a right good laugh, and as I say, they go up, get their rewards, smiles on faces everywhere. The secret is to get off the dance floor tidy, because I tell you what, they get going, those lot.
And when the buffet arrives as well, you've got to be sharp. What a lovely way to round up part 1 of this week's show. Don't go channel hopping though, because we'll be back very shortly with Francis Jeffers, Gareth Barry, Stan Collymore and a Halloween party. Welcome back to part 2 of this week's show. Now, a familiar face has been back at Finch Farm over the last year or so, gathering information and experience for his coaching badges. And now, Francis Jeffers has been made a permanent fixture, taking on the role of striker-specific academy coach. The Fox in the Box is delighted to be back where it all began.
Well, as you know, I've been in coaching for probably 18 months now, working with different age groups, and you know, I've sat with the likes of Sean London and David Unsworth, and I had an idea that, you know, I'd like to work with the strikers. It's an area of the pitch I know better than the other areas. So, you know, I approached Sean and Unzi, Peter Vint, our academy manager, people like that, and, you know, put the idea to them. It obviously took a lot of time in coming together. A lot of work's gone into it. But, you know, as I say, it was something I'm really passionate about, and I believe the kids in the academy need more help now as a striker. I don't think it was like when I came through, where, you know, the things I was doing in the youth team and in the A and B team, it was then, with the same things I'd done when I got in the first team, because we only ever played with 2 up front. You know, you look at it now and people play mainly with 1, some play with none. You know, you watch Barcelona and Man City, they don't play with a recognised striker on the pitch, Man City. So I just think that it's a lot harder now to break through these academies and into the first team, because, you know, your striker's role can be made up of many things: playing out wide, playing in a 3, playing up there on your own. You know, there's so much you can go into, which, as I say, I go back to what I've just said. It was different when I came through. I played in a 4-4-2 in the youth teams, in the A and B team, in the reserves, and then when I got in the first team, I played in a 2. Whether it be with Big Dunk, Kevin Campbell. So I was doing the same things right throughout my journey, and then when I got in the first team, I was doing the same things there, because it was something I'd been used to doing right throughout my younger days.
It's a great appointment down at Finch Farm, Graham. What will Franny bring to the young strikers?
I think the most important thing Franny will bring is know-how, his enthusiasm, and his desire to make the kids better. And I think that's, you know, infectious. You know, Franny's someone who's been in and around the Finch Farm for a while now, and as he said there, it's taken a while for the role to come together, but certainly he's shown his desire to be back at the football club, and we wish him all the best.
He was a good striker, wasn't he, Franny?
He was terrific. His movement was always very good. He knew where the back of the net was as well. You know, his work rate was good. You know, that's why we called him the Fox in the Box, because he literally did come alive. Anything around that box area, you know, he was there, Franny. So, you know, it'll be good for the kids, because he'll teach them the right habits, you know, the where to run, the timing of runs, you know. So I'm looking forward to seeing the fruits of his labour.
And it's another former player down at Finch Farm, which is what we like. Well, now for something completely different. The club staged a Halloween party earlier this week for local children. The venue was the free school facility on Spellow Lane. 3 of our under-23 players joined in the fun, and it was a spooky night.
This evening's event is a Halloween party for our youth zone young people who are aged 7 to 11 from our Blue Mile, which is Walton, Anfield, Everton and Kirkdale young people. This youth zone happens twice a week, every week, but obviously for themes throughout the year we'll do a party. The youth zone supported by a local solicitors, Jackson Cantor, and it's for vulnerable people, so it's about giving something back to the young people in the area. It's a great activity, and it's great to have some of the under-23 lads along as well to join in with the activities with the young people. This area, you don't see many young people out playing on the streets like we used to when we were younger, so it's nice to bring them into a safe environment and look about how we can create fun.
You know, just been joining in with a few of the activities, sat down, had a bit of food at them, just joined in and decorating, creating some spiders and playing ping pong and face painting and that with them. But oh, it's just good to come round and just have some fun with the kids.
We've got a few activities just behind me where they've been making like Halloween themed things. So there's like spider lollipops and Oreo biscuits to making scary faces. We've also just got like some usual activities. So we've got table tennis, which we have. So they've been great getting involved and learning how to make things themselves. So there's always a job here for them if they want to come down sometimes. When they come, they love it, like the smiles on their face, and that's the most important thing, that they're here having a good time as well as being safe.
The children who are involved are vulnerable people from in the area, so we bring them in, we'll give them some food, and they'll take part in active activities that will get them involved in an Everton in the Community project. Whilst they're here, we offer them support for any life activities that they may come across, but it's beneficial to them because it's local kids from local schools coming together to meet other young people. On every Tuesday to Thursday evening, on average, we'll get about 35 young people here from the age 7 to 11. As you can see tonight, they've all got involved and got dressed up. They absolutely love coming here, and as I said before, they're from all schools within the local area, so they're not necessarily their own school friends or their own neighbours, direct neighbours. They're all new people who they've met, so yeah, they love it.
That looked like a lot of fun. Well done to everybody involved. Now, from spooky ghouls to Stan Collymore, some might say that's not exactly the biggest leap. Stan knows full well that he divides opinion, but I tell you what, he always speaks very well of Everton. He's got a lot of time and a lot of respect for the Toffees, especially the work we do in the community. Stan was at Finch Farm recently to speak to Gareth Barry. The pair were teammates, of course, at Aston Villa, and they had some catching up to do.
And in that midfield area now that has been your home for quite some time, another former Villa player, Idrissa Gana Gueye. Give us an idea of what it's been like to play alongside him, because he's made a really good impact to Everton this season.
Oh, he's been unbelievable. If you look back at the 7 million you spent, you're thinking, you know, in today's market, it's not a great deal of money. He's come from a relegated team where you're thinking his confidence might be low, but you know, he was anything but that. He was the opposite. He's been really positive, and I think he's surprised everyone here at the club just what a good player he is. You know, he's full of energy, and people will talk about that, but also on the ball, he wants it all the time. He's confident on it, and you know, I think he can improve again.
As somebody that's been there and done it, I mentioned, you know, from Aston Villa 18 years ago now. It's unbelievable to think, really. He hasn't changed at all. It's bizarre. Benjamin Button, you're getting younger. To winning the Premier League title with Manchester City and the pressures that bring. You're at a huge club again in Everton. What would you regard as success for Everton this season with the youngsters that you've got, of course, managing to keep Romelu Lukaku and a young manager? What would success be?
I think if you look at the strength around us in terms of other clubs, there's a lot of teams that are expected to be now Champions League football. Obviously Everton want to get there, but for now I think a top 6 finish would be a successful season, a very successful season. But I'm sure as any fan at Everton will tell you, they want a trophy, and for me that's the one thing I regret at Aston Villa. I spent so long there and didn't win a trophy, so it'll be you know, it'd be sad if I spent a good period at Everton and that happened the same. So for me, that would be the pinnacle to get a trophy in this club that you can feel from the fans they desperately want to.
What has Ronald Koeman brought to Everton Football Club this season different?
Well, to begin with, the name Ronald Koeman stands straight out for what he achieved as a player. But straight away, you know, he knew what the dressing room needed. He would have known and spoke to people what they felt. This group, talented group of players, finishing mid-table, you know, it wasn't good enough. So he's come in, get everybody's standards up to scratch every day. You know, not 1 week on, 1 week off. Anybody's not training anything a bit of sloppiness in training. He's pulling it up on. So it's pretty basic stuff really, but basic stuff that's going to, you know, make you get to that next level. And then once you're there, then you can kick on again.
Graham, you and I have travelled back from all corners of the country listening to Stan Collymore on a Saturday night doing his phone, and he may have played for Liverpool, but he's got a lot of time for Everton, and you'd have played against him, of course.
Yeah, played against Stan, and you know, on his day he was as good as it gets. You know, really strong, powerful forward, scored good goals as well, some spectacular goals along the way. But he's turned his hand to the broadcast. I think he's pretty decent at the broadcasting as well. I think it's important if you're going to, you know, be on mainstream radio. You know, you are going to divide opinion. You are going to upset a few along the way. But you know, Stan's a big lad. I'm sure he can sort a few out if need be.
And it just shows how long Gareth Barry's been around, because they were teammates at Aston
Villa.
Villa.
Well, they were teammates at Aston Villa, and you know, clearly there, Stan, you can see the respect he's got for Gareth, as we all have.
Absolutely. Right, let's round off part 2 by looking at a terrific goal. Everton under-18s extended their unbeaten run last weekend with a 1-0 win against Middlesbrough at Finch Farm. The 3 points lifted the young Toffees into the top 6 in the table, and it was a goal that deserved to win any game. Some goal this, Graham, by the way.
Yeah, it was a terrific goal. I happened to be down there. I popped down to Finch Farm to watch the young lads, and young Jack Kersey there finished off with a plum. I think we're going to get the chance to see it in slow motion so we can dissect it a little bit more on the way through there. But good celebrations from the lads to start off with. But, you know, the timing of the run, the timing of the delivery back to him was perfect for Jack, and he finished it bottom corner. Is that a little David Unsworth in the corner there as well? When I say a little David Unsworth, that's...
David Unsworth celebrating.
Yeah, correct, yeah. But no, you've got to celebrate that. It was a perfect finish.
We're taking another short break right now. When we come back, we've got our big interview slot, and this week it's with the irrepressible Chris Kamara. Welcome back. Now, one of the most recognisable faces and voices on Sky Sports these days is Chris Kamara. Cammy has made himself into a national institution since swapping the dressing room for the television studio, and he was at our game with Bournemouth last month. Before the fans arrived at Dean Court, Cammy and I sat in the stands and had a chat, and I tell you what, he's certainly a fan of the boss.
You couldn't fail to be impressed with what Ronald Koeman's done. He's a very good manager, that's one thing for certain. If you look at the improvement that Southampton made underneath him, it was marvellous. Obviously you're going to be courted by other clubs at the end of the season. Everton were the fortunate ones who got him. I felt sorry for Roberto, of course, because just the defensive side of it. If he'd got that right at Everton, then he'd still be there. But I suppose, you know, if he was my uncle, I wouldn't be here today and all that type of stuff. So all those type of things. But Ronald Koeman, very, very good manager. No doubt about that. And says it how it is. I mean, I think that's the one biggest thing he has going for him. When you listen to him in press conferences, when you chat to him, as I do occasionally at the side of the pitch when he was at Southampton manager, I haven't spoken to him yet since he's been Everton manager, basically he's honest. He tells you what he thinks, he tells you about players, he tells you about other players of other teams if you ask him as well, and he'll give you an opinion. So that's fair enough. He doesn't, you know, sit on the fence, will tell you how it is. And you can see with what he did with Ross Barkley, you know, if you're not good enough, you're not going to play. It's as simple as that. Players accept that. Players understand that. It's when you drop them from a team, you don't speak to them, and then 3 weeks later you want them back on your side, and you think, well, he's blanked me for the last 3 weeks. Now all of a sudden he wants me in the team. He tells you, you're not being good enough, you're not up to your standard, I'm leaving you out. You might come back in, and then if you do, you've got to perform.
He was some player as well, wasn't he? Part of that magnificent Dutch side in the 80s.
Oh, legendary. Some of the free kicks that used to strike from distance were quite amazing. And of course, look at the clubs he played for as well. You know, he was a legendary player. And to be so well grounded, and his English is perfect as well, shows that, you know, what a clever man he is as well. And he can deal with footballers. You know, football is universal. There's no doubt about that. But you've still got to learn the language when you're dealing with English players. Let's not forget, he hasn't been there the whole of his life. He's been away playing football for fantastic football clubs. But you wouldn't know any difference, knows all the lingo and, you know, some of the phrases that you come out with, you think, but hell, even I hadn't even thought of that. Well, I have never thought of anything like that.
I'm not saying something. The Everton supporters were a little bit unsure in the summer when we brought Idrissa Gueye in from Aston Villa, but he really has hit the ground running, and that boy looks a player.
Yeah, I'm as surprised as you are. We had Tim Sherwood on Goals on Sunday, and Tim said the one player who he was able to recommend to all the other football clubs who would ask him about any of the Aston Villa players was Idrissa Gueye. And I said, well, I actually saw 3 games of Aston Villa last year, and there wasn't, in those 3 games that I saw them, they lost 2 and they drew 1 0-0. I didn't see anybody stand out at all. You know, it wasn't a case of, you know, just saying because they've gone down that they're not good enough. And all the critics were saying that, you know, there isn't a player in that team that you'd take out. So fair play to Everton Football Club, you know, and I have to bow to, you know, Tim. If Tim was saying that, then, you know, I accept that. But I didn't see it. But what I've seen at Everton is a totally different player. And I suppose when you're in a bad team, you can't shine. But if you're got the foresight to be able to see what you can do with a player in a bad team and put him into a good team, then it works wonders for you. And he's picking up all the plaudits at the moment, and it's working well, isn't it? It's better for for the likes of Ross Barkley when you've got Gareth Barry and just a guy who can sit and hold. Instead of having an extra defender like you did at times, you've now got an extra midfield player, and a midfield player who is relishing playing in the side.
We tried to get Gareth Barry on your show, on your Goals on Sunday show recently. Couldn't make it, but goodness me, he's still setting the standards, isn't he?
What a fine example to any professional. The way that he's conducted himself throughout the whole of his career, 600 games and still counting. He's a dream. He's a manager's dream. He's not going to go on forever, that's one thing for certain, but he's got another few years left in him, that's for sure. And he does the job. He doesn't complain. He goes about his business. He does everything right. He doesn't throw any histrionics when he's on the park. He's actually a team player. He's more of a leader and a captain than some of the leaders and the captains that we see around. And his England career was ended way too early, but that's helped him benefit playing for Everton for as many games that he has. And he's one of those that he's always first on the team sheet, and it's great to see that Ronald Koeman appreciates that as well. And it was a fine piece of management to bring him off in the final few minutes of his 600th game to give him that worthy round of applause.
Do you miss playing? Do you miss management, Chris?
I've got such a wonderful career. I played, I managed, and now I've got the best job in the world. Working for Sky. I do a load of stuff for ITV as well, so my life just gets better.
How many Evertonians often remind you about the time you brought Bradford City to Goodison Park and dubbed us out the FA Cup?
Well, funny enough, we had Mark Schwarzer on Goals on Sunday, and he mentioned that as the game that got him the move to Middlesbrough, even though he was fantastic in most of the games that he played for me at Bradford. That particular day should have got him a move to Everton, actually. He had a clause in his contract that if you paid anything over £1 million, that he had to be released. Barry Siltman was his agent. He brought him to me at Bradford. $150,000 I paid for him. And Joe's chairman rang Jeffrey Richmond, my chairman, to say that they wanted to buy him for £1,001,000. So the chairman called me up and he said, "What do you think?" And I went, £1? They are taking the Fiat Michael.
I wonder where that was going on, by the way.
And so I quickly, I'd had a phone call from Brian Robson just inquiring whether we'd be interested in selling him, and I did a little bit of management skullduggery in that particular time. I said we'd had an offer of £1,100,000 from you, where it was only £1, so I only added a few noughts. And so Middlesbrough came back, and we got into a sort of like a bidding war with the two clubs, and Middlesbrough eventually paid £1.25 million plus a game, a friendly, pre-season friendly. And Schwarzer went that way, and things didn't work out for Joe the other way, but I'm sure he's forgiven me now.
I'm not sure Neville Southall has. I'm not sure he's forgiven Chris Waddle either.
Oh no, that was amazing, that, because we obviously, as a manager, you watch the tapes. We'd drawn Everton in the FA Cup, and Nev was fantastic at coming out the edge of his box and spraying balls. You look at the game today, and you see that Joe Hart lost his place at Manchester City because he can't play. Supposedly can't play, if that was Pep Guardiola. Nev used to come right out, so he'd kick the ball, he'd roll it out, and he'd kick it and he'd ping it. And so what he was doing, as play was going on with the opposition, he was always on the edge of his box. So I'd watched about 4 or 5 games. So I just said to Chris Waddle, "Come in here and watch this on the video." So I said to Chris, "If the ball falls to you anywhere near the halfway line, don't look. You don't need to look, because he won't be on his line, Neville Southall." Not thinking it would actually happen, obviously, of course, but it felt to Chris Waddle, the one person who could actually do it. Yeah. And there it was, and he hit it, and it was over the top. And you imagine, right, as a manager, and I was a young manager at the time as well, that we've done all this preparation in the week, and then what do I do with myself, right? The players were all celebrating because the away fans were over the other side of Goodison, so I'm there like that. Anyway, I did a forward roll. Sorry. I was going to say a somersault, but it was a forward roll, a roly-poly, and I can just picture Joe looking at me like... And hey, you get good days in football management, and that was one of the good days. But Nev was a legend anyway, so he had a few bad days, but not that many.
I remember that Bradford City game over 20 years ago, Graham, and you played in it.
I know I'm trying to hide away a little bit here, but no, unfortunately I was involved in that game, and I don't think any of us will forget the sensational goal from Chris Waddle that knocked us out the cup, really. But very disappointing, but you know, one of the downsides, shall we say.
Cammy was a professional footballer for a long time. He dipped his toe into the world of management, decided it wasn't for him, moved into punditry, media work, and it looks like it's been the right decision for him.
I think it is. As you say, he's made an institution, hasn't he, of himself. You know, Saturday afternoon wouldn't be the same without Chris Kamara on the telly, would it? So, no, he does a wonderful job. I mean, I think we just love the mistakes he makes more than anything. But he's infectious. He's always got a big smile on his face, and he's just somebody you love to watch.
He just seems like one of the lads talking about football in the pub, doesn't he?
Oh, he does, and that's the secret of him. That's the enjoyment of sitting down and having a chat with Cammy, because you know he's got that wonderful laugh and the sense of humour as well. So it's just never a dull moment when you're around him.
As I say, he tried management. It wasn't for him. Was there ever anything you considered the management role?
I wouldn't have minded being a manager, to be honest with you. I'm be confident enough in what I wanted to do to be a manager, but there's a long way between finishing playing football and suddenly, you know, walking into a manager's office. I think there's a lot of things in between it that don't really sit right with me, to be totally honest with you. So I'd just end up frustrated, to be totally honest.
That's probably spoiling it for a lot of people who would be managers with a wealth of experience and knowledge to give.
Yeah, but you know, each to their own. I mean, I just look at certain things and I kind of understand why they're in place, but I think there's an awful lot of people in and around football who should be involved in management, but I think there's certain blocks that stop it happening.
It does seem to be a very elongated process, that's for sure. Well, we're 3/4 of the way through this week's Everton show. Coming up in the fourth and final part, we'll hear from Everton ladies manager Andy Spence ahead of their crucial game on Saturday. We speak to Tom Cleverley and we'll catch up with Koeman. Welcome back to the final segment of this week's show. Everton ladies are in action this weekend, but it's far from just another game. The Blues take on Bristol City at Widnes, and with just 2 fixtures remaining, it's effectively a winner-takes-all promotion decider. The Everton ladies manager Andy Spence is really looking forward to the challenge.
I'm not frightened to say it is a big game. I'm not frightened to say to the players, listen, it's a big game. They're not daft. They understand the realities of it, and you know, and we know it's a game of football that we're A, capable of winning, but B, we also know, and probably most importantly, is we've got to hit our own individual levels, which will allow the collective to come through. And we know we're facing a really strong side in Bristol, who I've got a huge amount of respect for. They're probably, in all reality, the best team we've played this year, I'll be honest with that. So I know we're facing a real good side, but a side that we've shown we can go and compete with, and if we get a similar result to the away leg, then, or the away game, not away leg, away game, then we'll all be happy.
Of course, there's London-based to come afterwards, so the ethos of one game at a time has never applied more than it does now.
Yeah, 100%, and you know, that's it as well. You know, you can only look at the next 90 minutes, or I think it was 99 minutes when we played them down there. So whatever it takes, you know, and you're right. And I think as well, importantly, this is one game of 2, you know, and you're right. This is all my mind and all the players' minds are focused on is this one. But then, you know, if results go our way, then we just shift our focus to the next game, and that's what you've got to do in football and what you've got to do in life. It's day to day, isn't it? You don't get too far ahead of yourselves. We don't think we're the world's best team at this moment in time, but we're a team who've got a lot of talent, and you know, who've shown, when given the opportunity to show what they can do, have, you know, generally gone out there and really enjoyed showing people what they can play like.
You can tell by the way Andy's speaking there, Graham, he knows it's a big game. It is a big
huge.
game.
Well, it is, yeah, you're quite right. 2 big games, hopefully, because and you've got to treat them as 2 cup finals. I mean, it's the oldest saying in the world, but you take each game as it comes, but you've kind of got it, you've got to the point now where it is like cup football. So the girls, you would like to think, are ready for the game. I'm sure they'll be prepared correctly. Hope they have a good night's sleep the night before, and you know, if 7 or 8 of them perform to the highest of their ability, you'd like to think we'll come out on top.
It's just about getting the result now, isn't it? Forget the performance. A good performance will be fine, but just go and get the win.
Yeah, of course. I mean, at the start of the season, the aim was to get promotion, and we're 2 games away from that. So the girls have certainly done themselves proud anyway. They just need to make that final hurdle now and get over the finishing line. But Andy said there, Bristol City are a really, really top side, but we've got to try and make home advantage play. So 6 o'clock Saturday night, if you're in the Widnes area, get yourselves down there and support the girls.
Absolutely, get your Saturday fix of Everton football. And that crucial game with Bristol City, as Graham said, at Widnes, kicks off at 6 o'clock. Pop along and see Everton ladies. Right, let's shift back to the men's game now. A somewhat disappointing run of results has put rather more emphasis on Sunday's Premier League clash with West Ham than would probably otherwise be the case. Of course, it's far too early, as we said earlier, to apply a must-win tag to this fixture, but Tom Cleverley, for one, agrees that the boys do need to get back on track.
Obviously, it's been a bit of a tougher spell from what we started off at. We've had some decent performances and not so good performances and probably some average results. So it's an important game this weekend. We're back at home. We've not played at home for a while, and we're not back at home for another period again. So it's massively important we put a performance in, and hopefully that'll bring the 3 points.
The manager's not been shy about how demanding he can be of the players, and one thing he said is that he wants more goals from around the team. Do you think that the midfield players in particular are up for that challenge?
Yeah, I mean, we've got to be. It's as simple as that. I mean, me, Ross, Gazza's got 2, which is a good return for a defensive midfielder, and Ghana, and the wingers as well. We all need to chip in. It's as well as Rom, who's doing fantastically goal scoring wise. So the manager's right. He's intense. He's just as demanding mentally than he is physically. I mean, I think that they're sensible with the training we do, but mentally you've got to be 100% concentrated all the time for what he wants to do. So it's very good.
You look down your record, there's a goal there against West Ham, your last one for Aston Villa. Does that give you more confidence when you know you've scored against an opponent before?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's 3 I've got in my career against West Ham. So I thought about that this morning driving in, to be honest, and hopefully I can make it 4. I think I missed both games against West Ham last year, so the last time I played against them I scored, so hopefully I can keep that run going.
It shows with Romelu as well. He always seems to score against West Ham.
Yes, so long may that continue, and but yeah, for me or Rom don't score and we get the 3 points, I don't think we'll be bothered. So that's all that matters this weekend, and hopefully we can do it.
Interesting there that Tom likes playing against West Ham because he's got a good goal record against them. You used to have had teams that you always look forward to playing against because you knew you'd score against them.
Yeah, it's funny how it works out, isn't it? I mean, I think Arsenal were pretty good for me. I mean, and they were a decent side, Arsenal, so God knows how I used to score all the time against them. But it's funny how things work out like that. I mean, talking about West Ham, Romelu always seems to score against West Ham as well, so hopefully that will continue for us on Sunday.
Their defenders will be thinking about that, won't they? Romelu's played West Ham 8 times in an Everton shirt and scored in every single game. Surely he'll get a big mention in their dressing room before the game.
Well, you'd like to think so. You'd think he'd get a mention anyway because, you know, he's our #1 striker, as simple as that, and he's our most likely goal scorer. So in the West Ham team room, they'll be talking about him. But they'll also be fearing him because as a defender, you do go to sleep and you think about who you're playing against. Oh, he's probably had the edge over me. I'm going to have to try and change that. But that's the challenges you set every time you play a Premier League game of football.
They didn't start well this season, West Ham, after moving to the London Stadium, but Slavs picked things up a little bit for them.
Yeah, certainly in the last few weeks, they've had a couple of good results. I mean, winning away at Crystal Palace, they only had 10 men for a fair period of time as well, and last-ditch goal against Sunderland, and then they beat Chelsea the other night in the Cup. So they've got a little bit of momentum coming to Goodison Park as well. So we're going to have to be on our mettle, and it can sometimes be a little bit difficult Sunday lunchtime, atmosphere-wise, but that's up to the players. The players have got to go out and, as I always say, start at a really good tempo, crosses, shots, excite the crowd and create that kind of atmosphere that we need to get us over the line.
Patience might be the key, mightn't it, from the supporters on Sunday. Well, we normally leave the last word on the Everton show to the manager, but this week we've got something a bit different, and I do only mean a little bit different because instead of the manager this week, we've got his brother. This is Owen Koeman's take on Sunday's game with the Hammers.
Every game you can win, but finally you have to show, of course, and you need sometimes some luck to win games. But the last 2 games West Ham win, so I think they will a little bit get back in shape because they had a very poor start. But what I said, the last 2 games they win, and they play a little bit different in the system. So and they have strong guys, They have good players, Poyet, Lanzini, for example, very dangerous players. So it will be a tough game, like every game.
Is it fair to say that some of our performances have not yielded the right result?
Yeah, but okay, if you get chances like last week, you have to make the chances, and then there is not a problem at all. And finally, of course, the 2-1 against Burnley, it was very disappointing for everyone, for the fans, for us, for the players. You feel it several days in your body. But anyway, the next game is coming, and we have to prepare ourselves for a tough game. But that game we can win, of course.
West Ham have got dangerous players going, haven't they? Undoubtedly.
Oh, they have. I mean, Lanzini's a good player. I mean, but the one who jumps out at you is Payet. Simple as that. I mean, we saw how effective he can be last season, unfortunately. But, you know, he's had a little bit of a European campaign hangover, if you like. But all of a sudden he seems to be just getting his feet back again and starting to affect games like we know he can. So certainly, as much as we've mentioned that they'll be talking about Romelu Lukaku and the danger that he could inflict upon them, you know, equally, I'm sure we've got Payet lined up, ready to make sure we can make sure he doesn't have an effect on the game.
What we have been this season, though, is solid at the back, haven't we?
Well, we have. I mean, you've got two experienced boys in Jags and Ashley Williams, and the two fullbacks speak for themselves. I mean, we know we can be nice and solid, nice and compact. You've got Gareth and Adrissa just in front of them as well, but. You know, it's frustrating because as much as it's all well and good being nice and solid, it's that final third where we've just got to start taking our chances, pick out that final little bit, that final pass a little bit better, and we'll certainly turn draws and, you know, potential defeats into draws and wins.
We're still sixth in the table, but it's important not to be cut adrift from the top 4 or 5, isn't it?
No, you've got to keep the pace. You know, the worst thing in the world is trying to play catch-up in the Premier League, whether that be for a top 6 position or, you know, for the lesser lights, you know, the relegation scrap. So you've got to keep winning games of football, and 3 points and then potentially 2 wins on you know, back-to-back make a massive difference to your campaign. So momentum is huge in the Premier League.
It's another big game at Goodison Park on Sunday afternoon, and that wraps up this week's programme. Just before we go, I must tell you that we'll be remembering Howard Kendall on Sunday. It's our first home game since the first anniversary of the great man's passing. The supporters will celebrate his unrivalled contribution to Everton with a sustained period of applause in the 4th minute of the game. That shirt number, of course, that Howard wore with immense distinction. Still missed and always loved. My thanks to the Diamond this week for his input, and to you all for tuning in, and we'll be back next week with another Everton show.